Good evening, viewers. Welcome to the 69th episode of CovidCastJA Business. You know what we're talking about tonight, protecting your personal brand. And tonight, our special guest will discuss how to create your personal brand, how to protect it, and also how to secure sponsorships. Personal branding is even more vital at this time. We have to create the narrative of our brand, or someone else will or won't. So we need to talk about how do we build that identity and secure it online and offline. Please listen. For this episode, we have a memo that you can download and you can read at your leisure, make your notes, and follow some of those guidelines and tips that are available. And in fact, we do a weekly memo for each of our episodes. And you can easily get this memo if you go to smallbusinessportal.com. What's that? Smallbusinessportal.com. Click on CovidCast and then enter your details for the subscriber mailing list. Or you can simply email us at sme@psoj.org. And let me tell you, I have a big announcement to make tonight. October 22nd and 24th, we will be hosting, the PSOJ will be hosting a 2-day conference, Building Wealth. This is a virtual conference, and day one, we'll be talking about building wealth in business. And day two, we're talking about building generational wealth, how to make that money, keep it, and grow it for families, individuals, and those interested in just ensuring that they are securing their future. You're asking yourself this question: how much is this conference? The conference is free and registration opens next week. We look forward to seeing you there, and over the next few weeks, we'll be having our build up to the conference. So we expect to see you on CovidCast as we start marinating the discussion, building wealth. But tonight we are talking about personal branding. Sandra Palmer, I see you're present and waiting to know more about protecting your brand. Sandra, it's always great to see you on CovidCast. Now, personal branding has become an even more relevant topic during this COVID-19 as we've spent so much more time online. There's so much more weight that's put on building a solid, dependable brand that can stand out in these challenging and uncertain times. And when it comes to this personal branding, there are 4 A's: becoming an authority, being authentic, paying attention to the details, and building affinity to relate to your ideal customer or audience. And we will be hearing so much more about this tonight. Remember too, there's also this rising cancel culture online where it feels that there's a great deal of pressure and there's no room for mistakes. So there's some questions that you will ask. How do you define and create your brand that will last a long time and will last long term? And how can you protect your brand or reputation online and offline? How also can you be profitable and attract sponsorships and endorsements? And our guests tonight are the PR chick, Naomi Garrick, personal branding coach and founder, Garrett Communications. The PR belle, Danielle Terrelonge, managing director, DRT Communications. And branding maverick, Jomarie Malcolm Gordon, brand expert and attorney at law, Malcolm Mavericks Creative Consultancy. Karine, I see you. Arlene, good evening to you. Marcia Forbes, always great to have you on CovidCast and always great to see you anywhere. Naomi Garrick is personal branding coach and founder of Garrick Communications. She is a public relations consultant, author, international speaker, personal branding coach, and brand strategist who helps individuals, entrepreneurs, corporate executives, and CEOs to discover, define, and develop their unique personal brand in order to effectively communicate their expertise and stand out in their craft or industry, both on and offline. Wow. Experts we have tonight. She is also the founder of Garrett Communications, a boutique PR agency and a certified reputation champion by the Public Relations Society of America, with over 16 years of experience in public relations and marketing, working with over 100 brands and individuals. She's also co-founder of Ready to Emerge Personal Development Summit and workshops. Naomi is passionate about helping people to see the greatness that sometimes they cannot see within themselves by helping individuals to identify, to reinvent their unique personal brand in order to stand out in this very noisy world. Naomi Garrick, how you do, girl?
I'm good, Rachel. Thank you so much for that awesome intro, and good evening, everyone. Hi, Marcia. So happy to be here.
Great to have you on. And viewers, just so that you note, the memo this week is building a better online personal brand. And the notes are from Naomi Garrick. This is a must download. You must have this in your arsenal. And ladies and gentlemen, you remember CovidCast is brought to you by the private sector organization of Jamaica in association with our sponsors, NCB Group and JMMB Group. The people are rolling in. Rush Cam, I see you. Christina Nemhard, good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Naomi, let me just ask you a quick question first, just to set the stage.
Sure.
Personal branding is one of them things there. Is like a fashion thing. Is it the new black, or is it very real?
Rochelle, it is so real that it's scary right now. And the thing is, guys, personal branding it's not something new. In essence, it's your reputation, right? But the difference is, as Rochelle had mentioned in our intro, because we're living in this digital society, people now have access to your personal brand by simply doing a Google search. So people are already making decisions about hiring you, investing in your company, engaging your products or services or not, just based on what they see on that first page of Google. And so that's why now we hear a lot more people talking about personal branding, and you have to have an online brand and you have to update your online profiles, because your profiles now have more eyes and they travel far and wide across the globe without you even being aware. So it's really about positioning yourself, so that, as Rochelle mentioned, you are creating the narrative for your story and for your brand, instead of allowing others to create their own based on what they see or what they do not see.
Exactly. And I think it's very important that we just establish that, because sometimes when we see these terms floating, your personal brand, some people are like, poo, I don't have any time for this. I'm trying to run a business. But this is a critical element in how we develop our businesses.
Absolutely. And the thing is, Rochelle, a lot of people still think that personal brands are only reserved for celebrities and influencers and CEOs, right? People who are already out in the public space. But you already have a personal brand, and it's a couple of different things, right? It's how you see yourself. That's one. A lot of times we may see ourselves a particular way, but that's not necessarily what we're projecting to the world. So your personal brand also becomes what others have to say about you. Jeff Bezos says your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. It's also what you want to be known for. What's that thing that makes you unique? What's that question that you answer? Who do you serve with your talents and your skills and your expertise? How do you do something that everyone else does better or differently? And then, of course, it has also become what Google has to say about you. And right now, sometimes that's the first and only chance you get to showcase your brand, is when someone does an online search, especially in this time where we're not moving around and networking in the traditional sense. People use what they see online to make decisions about your product or service and your reputation.
Wow. And Naomi, you have had quite an established career in public relations and personal branding. So can you just tell us a little bit about Garrett Communications and being the PR chick?
Absolutely. So I'm the founder of Garrett Communications, which is a boutique PR agency here in Kingston, Jamaica. And essentially with the firm, we are celebrating our 12th year this year, which is really crazy to me sometimes. But what we do as a PR agency is we help individuals, brands, and companies to be seen, heard, and experienced by their ideal audience. And we do that by leveraging media relations, using creative storytelling in order to really place our clients in front of the right audience using different types of media channels. but we do it in very creative ways based on the client that we're working with and what their overall objective is. Personal branding is actually something I stepped into over the last 3 years because I realized that I really enjoyed helping people to really just discover who they were and to not only discover it, but how to communicate it effectively to the people that actually need their services. I get a lot of fulfillment with helping people to see the greatness within themselves. And sometimes, you know, we just don't tend to see that for ourselves in a lot of cases, and you need someone to bring it out. And so I help people with that. PR chick now, over the years, a couple of our clients started referring to me and my team as the PR chicks. But most of the time that I've had my business, it's always been females. We have incorporated PR chucks in our organization a couple times. But people started referring to us as their PR chicks. Oh, our PR chicks are here, or that's the PR chick. And so it's something that stuck with us, and we created a brand out of it essentially. We utilize brand colors, pink, black, and white. So I'm usually in something PR chick pink. But also it helped us to differentiate from other experts in our industry. So it became our moniker, our brand moniker, PR chick. And it's something that I carried over into personal branding. And it has been very effective for me to stand out in this space as a personal branding expert. People who don't even really know me, because they see the PR chick brand on social media, on my workbook at Fontana, they're able to connect the brand to an individual. And so that's another part of personal branding, right? You use different elements from your skills, your expertise, your brand colors, logos, things that you want to be identified with. So I wanted to be known as the PR chick. And that's why in any communication I use it as a part of my brand communication strategy.
So what you've actually done is kind of set out for us how you've been able to create this personal brand, develop your business brand, and also present yourself as an expert. And I know sometimes our viewers are saying to themselves, oh, that's Naomi Garrick. Her background is PR, so she know what she's doing, and she needs to do that kind of thing because she's into PR. But I have a small business and I like to be behind the scenes. So how do I use personal branding to help leverage my business? Do I need to put my personal brand forward to help persons to see who is behind it? Or do I just put up the logo and just hide?
So Rochelle, that's a really good question. And I think back in the day, it was okay to just have your logo and hide. But nowadays, as I said, because we have more access to the information, and I think this generation that we're living in, we want to know the people that we're working with. We want to know the products that we're supporting, what the mission is, what are the values. We want to know the individual as well. And that's why with a lot of companies that you see, even the big companies and the small companies, you identify a company with its CEO or its leadership team. And even as it relates to choosing jobs now, a lot of individuals actually want to know who is behind the brand before making a decision to apply for a job. They want to make sure that the values are similar, that the culture is similar. And so I would definitely recommend to small businesses that if you can put your face behind the brand, it helps to bring out credibility. It helps to form a community. And it builds trust. And when people trust you, they want to support you and they'll buy from you. And we noticed that, I think there's a quote by Tony Robbins that says, people are not in the business of buying goods and services. They're in the business of feelings, connection, and emotion. And we know as buyers, sometimes we support brands not because they have the best product or service, but we like the owner and they're trying something and we can relate. And so that connection is very important. It's a very important part of building your brand. So I think when you have a standout brand and you can talk on behalf of your company, and you don't have to start by just doing a million videos or popping up on every single social media platform. Start where you are, right? It could be one post a week, one post a month, but find a way to connect with your audience so that they know who you are interested in their concerns, and you're actually providing value that can support the problems or challenges that they may have. So it's very important to understand what your role is as a business owner or as an SME or an entrepreneur or startup is. What is the problem that I solve for my ideal audience, and how can I show up for them in a real way that they feel connected to me? And even if they're not ready to buy from me right now, when they are, I will be top of mind because I've already provided the value that they need just by showing up and sharing my knowledge and expertise.
Yeah. And and by the way, viewers, if you're just joining us, we are with Naomi Garrick, personal branding coach and founder, Garrett Communications. She is the PR chick. She is a personal branding expert and strategist. Now, I noticed the comments, and I know that with Naomi in her PR chick colors, she may also be so stunning you that you're forgetting to ask her any questions. To ask the questions, because we have her here. Stephanie, I see you. Tony Ann, Yannick, Audrey, good evening to you all. And Beverlyn, it's always great to have you on the show. I see Yannick say, to truly go beyond, be you. That is great. Now, Naomi, you touched on building that online brand. How do you create this personal brand online and offline? And I know for some persons, when just the thought of it gets scary because they think, I have so much more to do, I cannot take on one thing else. But we notice too, as you've said, that as you said, you buy relationships. You follow a brand on Instagram, you get to know the owner. You are buying a whole relationship. You bought their story. How important really is it to get that online brand? How do you create it? And what's an online brand versus an offline brand? We never learn all of that in school.
So the thing is, what I always recommend first is that you start first just getting clarity on who you are. And this works for an individual or even a brand. It starts with that introspection first. So you really need to be very clear about who you are as an individual, what is important to you, what are your core values, what do you like to do, what do you enjoy. And then when you have clarity on who you are, then you think about your value. What is that unique value that you have to offer based on your experience, based on your expertise, based on your own personal journey? Because of course, we're going to find other experts in our field that do exactly what we do. But the thing is, based on your experience, your education, and your own unique journey, nobody in the world does it quite like you do. And so it's for you to really understand what that differentiator is for you and your brand, so that you can start positioning it and using it in what we call the headline statement for your social media or online platforms, right? It's how you want to be remembered. What's the thing that you want to be known for? So you have to understand your value. And once you understand your value, you then need to identify who's your audience. Who are you trying to sell to? Who's your ideal client? Who are you trying to communicate with? Whose problem do you actually solve? So who do you help because of your knowledge and expertise? Once you know that, then you can start positioning your brand and packaging your brand in a way that allows you to promote it to your ideal audience or client. So it's clarity, value, and communication. So with the online brand now, just to be clear, your online brand, personal brand, in-person brand must be the same person. What we don't want to see is this fabulous or amazing online brand, and then when they meet you in person, it's somebody totally different. Your in-person brand and your online brand must be the same person. And I understand, just like when you're at work and you're at home, you showcase different aspects of your brand depending on the environment or the situation. But at the end of the day, it's still just you, right? You're just one person. So when I'm asked the question, is there a difference between your personal and professional brand? I always say no. And we see that all the time, especially in the online space, when an individual in a personal capacity may share something online that others may deem inappropriate or unacceptable or something that's displeasing or is not aligned with the brand that they thought this person had. The first thing people start to refer to is the company that this individual works for. So they're going to say, did you know Naomi Garrick, the PR chick, or of Garrett Communications posted this thing, whatever. That's what happens all the time. So people don't disassociate the professional side from the personal side. So we have to be very mindful of how we're showing up in this online space. The great thing is that online levels the playing field for everybody, because everybody has a smartphone, everybody has access to the internet, and all you have to do is, once you understand your value and you know your audience, you can choose a platform. You don't have to be on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, everybody. Know where your audience lives online, and that's where you need to show up and start speaking to them. The online world provides us with many opportunities to connect, to engage, to get new clients, to get hired. And so we have the opportunity now to basically use our own brands and almost create our own media channels right at home by using a smartphone, showing up with immense value as often as you can, so that your audience starts to think of you as an expert. They start to think of you as a thought leader. And it's not just for entrepreneurs, it's for people that are also already established in a company. It helps not just your reputation, but it also helps the company's reputation. And that's why a lot of companies have started also reaching out to do personal branding trainings and workshops for their employees, because they see the value of having strong personal brands, because they become brand ambassadors for their companies. So the only difference is online is that we now have the opportunity to really stand out in this space. As Rushcam says, the internet is the great equalizer. There are no more excuses anymore. We can set up a home studio with less than $50 US, right? For a ring light, you have your phone already, maybe get a webcam, and that's it. Start thinking about what are the top 10 questions that you can solve or answers that you can provide for your ideal audience. Start with that as a base, write them out, and then use that to create your first batch of content. Your audience will always tell you what you need. So if you're a financial advisor and you meet with your clients every day, they always have a problem that they need you to solve. What's that problem? Maybe you could jump online and do a video, or you could write an article if you're camera shy, or you could just share some tips, create a PDF document, and you share it on your platform that people can download. There are so many ways for you to connect with your audience and give value without it being stressful. And you don't have to be on camera. Work with what is comfortable for you and what how your audience likes to receive content from you, because that's important as well.
So Naomi, after you've gone through all of that and you've followed the steps, you've read Naomi's tips, you've attended one of her sessions, and I see a question here from Alta: do you do personal coaching? But we'll also get your information of where people can.
And all my details are in the awesome memo that was provided as well.
Yes. So, question: you've created this personal brand and you're doing pretty well with it. It's, you've set it up online, offline, wherever people have gotten to know you. And how do you protect this brand? But even more so, if something has affected, if you've made a mistake that has affected the brand, is there any recovery?
Absolutely. But here's the thing, right? So Warren Buffett says that it takes 20 years to build a reputation and only 5 minutes to ruin it. And if we think about that, we do things differently. Unfortunately, in this world, this digital world that we live in, we can ruin our reputation like that. With a screenshot, with a voice note, with a leaked video. There's so many ways now to get things that may not reflect your brand or personality out in the global space to millions of people in seconds. And so for me, it's about just being very careful of how you show up in these spaces. We have to remember that we don't have to post everything. We don't have to share everything. We don't have to comment on everything. We don't have to like everything, because every time we do that, we are leaving a digital footprint of our brand across the internet for other people to find and make an opinion. Of course, there is an opportunity for recovery. To me, timing is everything. So once something happens online, especially because that's where most of these things happen, you have to acknowledge the mistake as quickly as possible. If you know you're definitely in the wrong, apologize sincerely. We have to use empathy, right? And speak to how you will correct this moving forward. So you want to do it in a timely fashion address it on the platform that it came out first. So if something came out on Twitter first, that's where you need to be first to make your initial address. And of course, you want time to think through an official apology or how you want to present the brand. But you need to at least start first by acknowledging, accepting, whether it's apologizing, and also speaking to how you will ensure this does not happen again. I find that when we are able to respond to these negative things quickly, it helps to bring our story to the forefront as well, so people don't just run with the negativity. So it actually gives you a chance to start to be a part of the story without the story running ahead of you. So definitely think of an opportunity. But guys, we are all the brand ambassadors of our brands. So we have to ensure that we are also very just mindful of how we're showing up in the on and offline space. And then I'll just give a couple things that you can do to also protect your brand just in general. I always recommend that if you can reserve your name as a website domain, do that. You may not want to use it right now, but there will come a time where you want to use it and you want to have it and you don't want to pay someone $10,000 to get back your website. You want to make sure that you're registering your trademarks, especially as individual creators, entrepreneurs. Go to JIPO. Make sure that your intellectual property is registered. That's very important. You don't want to spend all this time building a brand only to know that someone else decided to register your brand and now you have to forfeit all this work that you have created. So those are some of the things. If you're jumping on social media, you're not sure where to start, at least reserve your social media handles so that when you're ready, people can find you. So those are just some quick tips to just start, thinking actively on how you can also secure your brand in the online space.
Thank you very much, Naomi. I see Sandra Palmer says this should be a course offered in the workplace. It feels like a masterclass. I'm seeing a question here. Yannick, Yannick has been offering some great little tips there. She says you can't protect a brand as much as you can evolve it. She also says hashtag authentic approach. Sandra Palmer says social media can be a cruel place. It helps to build your brand and can also tear you down in seconds.
And the recovery is so much harder. It's always harder to build back the brand. So let's try to mitigate that situation by protecting the brand beforehand.
And Kerry Wallace says, very informative. Then he says, but how do you balance promoting yourself online with the old adage? Self-praise is no recommendation, which is still entrenched in his mind by his parents. And this comes up
I had an online coach, and she told me, if you don't open your mouth, no one will know what you have to say. So we have to get rid of that, because what happens now, especially in the online space, we see experts jumping online every day who are not necessarily the experts, but because they're showing up, people are choosing them for opportunities that really should be yours. And so you have to start showing up. Just start slowly, but we're in a space now where it is so much more competitive. As Rush said, the internet is the equalizer. So that means a lot more people are jumping online. A lot more people are going on LinkedIn. A lot more people are on social media offering the same or similar services that you have to offer. So you have to figure out how can you position, package, and promote your personal brand so you are standing out as the expert and thought leader to your ideal audience.
So how do you position, package, and promote your personal brand? And viewers, please remember, we have Building a Better Online Personal Brand, or weekly memo. It is available on smallbusinessportal.com. If you're not part of our mailing list, email us at sme@psoj.org. Can you imagine that much of this information from this masterclass is available in our weekly memo? And ladies and gentlemen, there is more to come, so have your pencil and paper out. Naomi, you've taken us on that personal branding journey, protecting our personal brand, building that personal brand online. We cannot thank you enough for showing up with your personal brand on CovidCastJA, and also your great contribution to this week's memo. I'm going to ask the producers to put in the chat Naomi's details so people can know where to find her. But quickly, Naomi, where can persons find you online?
Okay, so you can follow me at the PR Chick on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn. And what I like to tell people is you can also Google me. If you Google Naomi Garrick or the PR Chick, all my information is there online. So Google, LinkedIn at the PR Chick. And on the PR Chick page, there's actually a link in my bio that directs you to all the various services. I know people were asking about that earlier. So workbooks, online courses, training sessions, it's all there in the link in my bio at the PR Chick. So all the information is there when you're ready.
Oh, thank you very much. Naomi Garrick, personal brand coach, brand strategist, founder of Garrett Communications. And we have more, because we're just getting warmed up. So Naomi provided our early juggling, and now we have Danielle Terrelonge, who is managing director of DRT Communications. She's a marketing and communications professional based right here in Jamaica. She's also a trained life coach and operates 3 businesses: DRT Communications Limited, Scale Up Limited, and Well by Danielle. Her company, DRT Communications Limited, offers marketing communications and media monitoring services to over 40 clients across the Caribbean. Her experience has had her developing and implementing marketing and communication strategies for companies such as KFC, Pizza Hut, Red Bull, Red Stripe, and several others. She's considered an expert in risk mitigation for businesses in the area of corporate communication. And has also worked with several companies through mergers, acquisitions, and IPOs, those initial public offerings. By the way, she's the first recipient of angel investment in the Caribbean, and thus the first woman to receive this type of investment. Danielle Terrelonge,
hello, good evening.
It's always important to, and viewers, we do read our guest bios, because that is also a part of your personal brand, ensuring that you do have a bio that persons can refer to and even understand what expertise you are bringing. Danielle, you were the first recipient of angel investment. So tell us a little bit about DRT Communications and what this business does.
Sure. Well, thank you, and good night and good evening rather to everyone that is logged in. So DRT Communications, I'm just 1 year older than Naomi. Actually, think in real life I'm 1 year older than her too. And we are 13 years old as a marketing communications agency. I started in the bedroom that's right behind me as a one show pony, I guess you could say, one person, and now we have a team of amazing 25 people serving in public relations, digital marketing, marketing project management. And one of the things we're most proud of is that we are the Caribbean's first technologically driven media monitoring agency. And what that really means is we have way too many cable boxes, way too much equipment in my office right now that is listening out for the very same brands that we are talking about tonight. Many of the larger brands throughout the Caribbean use us to listen to their brands. And that was actually why we got angel investment, because we wanted to provide a service that allowed people to listen to their brands and have information that's being said about their brands aggregated into one place in real time.
Yeah. So you have done a lot of work with businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses, in building their brand. And on the other side of that, you do the media monitoring. So you know the kinds of things that persons react to about brands, whether great reactions or very negative reactions. Can you tell us a little bit about that process of building your business brand? Because many times as we spoke about with Naomi, we're so focused on the product that we are creating, on the particular talent that we have, but we're not quite certain, how do we build that brand from scratch?
Right. Well, the first thing that I always talk about in any of the seminars that I hold, and this applies to whether it be a small business, a very large business, you're a marketing officer in a company, or even a CEO. we have to ask the question, what are the business objectives, or actually what are the consultant's objectives? What are you trying to do exactly? What are you trying to achieve, say, within the next 12 to 18 months, as an example, or the next 5 years? And your business objectives are very different from your marketing objectives. We want to know where the business is going. What are we going after? And many times, of course, with new companies, one of the first things we have to do when we go to the next step in building our marketing objectives is look at our developing our brand awareness. And then we take that down into brand loyalty. And that, so there are many steps of building the brand, but you always have to start with, what are we trying to build in the first place, right? Then it's always important. I heard Naomi speak before, and I absolutely agree with her about, building that brand narrative, building, I tell people all the time, your brand, I actually coined this phrase, and the only thing I haven't done is go to Jaipo, like what Naomi said we should do. Your brand is not your logo. It's the perception, expectations, and the emotional connection that people have with you. And that, of course, will happen through, like, Naomi's always in pink. I took a picture with her last week and she sure had on pink shoes. There's always something. She had the chicks. Nike has the swoosh. Amazon has almost like a swoosh going from A to Z, that kind of thing. There's always that brand look and feel, which is important. But what's often forgotten, so people will come to me and say, Danielle, I need you to help me build my brand. And I'm like, and they go, yeah, man, I need a logo and I need it. No. If we're building a brand, we're going much step further. I have something in my workshop that I call the brand wheel. And we go through, what words do you want people to say when they speak about you, when they go into your store, when they eat your food, when they wear your clothing, when they stay at your Airbnb? All of these things are brands, right? And so we go through, and what's the emotional words, and we break those down. So we start with, come up with 30 words. I want people to feel comfortable, secure, safe, happy, excited. All of these things, we just throw it. Then we narrow that down to 15 words, and then we narrow it to 6. And that becomes your brand narrative, right? This came about because I have a very good friend who was a chef, and she said every graphic designer was coming back to her with a logo with forks. And she's like, that's so played out. And I said, have you communicated your brand narrative to the designer so that they know you're not just about a fork, right? And then when we went through the process, she realized, yes, she was a chef, but she was offering so much more value, and her values had to come out. And that's the exercise, the start of building your brand narrative. And then, of course, now we go into the logo and the signage and the parking lot and the shirts that we wear, and all of that great stuff that people see. But before any of that, Rush, when you walk into a store, you and I are going to go shopping tomorrow, I hope. We go shopping and we walk into a store. When the person says, good afternoon, welcome to Danielle's boutique. Thank you. Oh, I'll give you a great example. This past week, I went to Carrie's Women's Wellness Center, right? And of course, Dr. Terrelonge, a powerful brand in and of itself. But what was great is Dr. Lawrence, she's an OBGYN, she was running late. And they called me ahead to let me know that she was running late. And you're going to say, Danielle, what does this have to do with our brand? That showed me that her values respect time. It values my time. So she was running 15 minutes late. She was delivering a baby or something. And she made sure her team called me. And that spoke to me, and now will make me continue to, I don't even know what Caris's logo looks like, but I know that the values of her brand are efficiency and somebody who respects time. And that connects with my values.
Wow. So, even as we're thinking about our brand, we do have to think holistically, because, when we start up our business, the first thing we say is, I'm going to get a logo, I'm going to get some shirts, I'm going to put the logo them on the shirt, and I'm going to hit the road. Now, but we do have to actually start thinking about things like what values, what are our brand values, and are we actually living up to these brand values? And then there's this thing now about a brand statement. That's
Right.
only university degree though. That's something that we
Right.
as ordinary business people can come up with a brand statement.
Brand statements, right? So of course we all went through the developing your mission, vision statements, and all of this stuff, right? There's nothing more that I actually hate to see, because how many of us right now? I will give 1 million Monopoly dollars right now to anybody who can tell me of a mission statement that's not theirs, of a bank that they have gone into the whole mission statement. We can't. And why is that? Because many of those mission, vision, brand statements, or mission and vision statements, haven't connected emotionally with the customer. And very importantly, it talks about what we will do for you. We promise to be customer centric, etc., etc. And that sounds good. There's nothing wrong with that. But really, as a human being, when you connect with somebody emotionally, it's the value that I give to you, Rochelle, as the friend. You don't like me because you're a great person. You like me because your values and my values connect. And so we talk about that personally. And we see that all the time in personal relationships, intimate relationships. After a while, it break up. Values don't work. People stop going to a place because all of a sudden the customer service breaks down, or something like that happens. So it's not, so there is the value. There are two things. There's the value and there are the values. And let me talk a little bit about value. I have an iPhone and I love my iPhone. It's great. Never do I talk about the fact that my iPhone holds 63 apps and I can take pictures with it. No. What I will talk about and how iPhone got to me was there was an easy way and a most beautiful way of capturing my experiences. I love the fact that it's business friendly and allows me to have my laptop, my iPad, and my iPhone at any given time, allowing me to be efficient. You see that word, efficiency, you've heard it from me. So you know that's something important for me. It's not talking about the functionality of the phone. It's talking about the experience that I have with the phone. And that is a huge part of the brand narrative. That is a huge part of the value of the product or service that you're selling, or as a consultant that you are giving to others. Then there are the values, which I just spoke about in terms of being efficient, being on time, being beautiful, being clean. I tell people all the time, I will go to any hotel in the world under the sun. I like the nicest places, of course, right? I would love to go to a beautiful hotel right now. But I can catch my tenant somewhere as long as it's clean, because that has to be one of the value. That's a big part of my values. Of course I'm being a little bit trivial about it, but I really mean that we must look at the value that our product and service offers and how the values of our clientele to make that emotional connection.
Yes. And this is really so important, because sometimes as business owners, we get so caught up in that industry inward reflection that we forget to ask ourselves, what value, as Naomi put it, what problems am I solving for my customers? So the same thing for me with my phone. I don't know how much megabyte it have or how much pixel. I don't know. I just know that it connects me to everything and keeps me efficient.
Efficient. It
Um,
does.
and that difference between the value and the values, and that we need to be connecting with the values of the customers too that we
Absolutely.
are seeking to serve.
Absolutely.
And I see Dr. Smith, so great to see you. Says, good evening, everyone. Brilliant points. Your hashtag values show up in your brand. I love this.
Love this.
Abigail
Yeah.
Edwards, it's true. Because Island Grill mission and vision statement is visible to me each time I enter the store, and I can't tell you any. So
Right.
it is that brand statement. We do focus a lot on our mission statement and our vision statements, which are a lot about our internal positioning with how we will
Right.
head out to the market. But we have to ask ourselves, what are we communicating to our clientele about
Right.
our products and
And
services?
that connects to them. Can you imagine if one of our lovely banks had a single mission statement, and I would call it a brand statement, that said, out in 5, they would have every person in Jamaica. If you could bank in 5 minutes, right, and have it all done, they would have every customer in Jamaica. And they certainly would have me, right? And as because you go, but actually, they wouldn't have every customer because not every customer has the
Once you
values
get
of
out,
time. They
right?
don't.
So
Some people don't mind standing up at the
some
bank
people
for
are
two
like,
hours
well,
as a matter of
open
fact.
side means that you're not going to sit and talk to me. You're not going to hear
So,
about. So you do need to also know
yeah,
what are the things that matter to your target market.
right. What are the values of that person and what they value is one of the most important things. And when you have those things, you go to that thing where I talk about connecting emotionally. I give you just one more quick example. When we were launching media monitoring, and it still comes up from time to time as the team writes, narrative to appeal to media monitoring, which is very important for all brands to have. Um,
Mhm.
but but it's a big sell, right? To the corporates. And oftentimes, especially in the beginning, my team was telling the clients what our media monitoring service does. They were telling them about the phone. And I said to them, I'm going to tell you, I want to go through the experience of as a marketing manager for you. You're at work and it's 10 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the night, and board meeting is at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And you have a report and you have just spent, $25 million of the company's money. And you better report to the board by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning what you did with their $25 million, right? You've worked hard and you're like this and you're tired. Many people have done it before board meetings. I used to have a partner that would wake up at 4 a.m. to prepare for his board meetings. We've all done it. Media monitoring allows you to go in and this is talking about monitoring your brand. Always know what's happening with your brand at any given time. But back to the story. So I was telling them, so as a marketing manager, you're tired and you have to do this report. So I would say to them, write to the marketing manager that you're going to help them decrease the time they take to prepare reports from 6 hours to 2, because the system is aggregating that all throughout the month. So by the
That's
time
what
they sit to
matters.
do their, and
Customer.
as a marketing manager, if you
That's
told me that I didn't have to be at work like this at 10 o'clock the night before board meeting, sold,
so.
sold. You have my
Yeah,
budget.
and Dr. Smith says, I wish we could get this message to many businesses in internet service providers, utilities, government, that we have to be connecting with the values of our customers. And
Absolutely.
as we're even on this topic, Danielle, people ask the question, how do businesses determine how they sponsor an entity,
Mm.
how they align with an influencer, how they endorse another product? What are some of the things that a large business considers in making these sponsorship endorsement decisions?
So absolutely important. I don't do a lot of sponsorship in terms of writing proposals, but what I do, I am the project manager of Restaurant Week, and every year we have had to go out and seek sponsorship, right? And I see proposals, brand managers and marketing managers will ask me all the time, Daniel, what do you think of this? And what annoys me is when you tell me that I'm going to get mention on 4 press ads and logo is available on, and that's, and everybody in the industry got that same proposal. Here's what we would like to see. I'd like party promoters and event holders, etc., to look at the company, the brand they're going after, and align their event with that with that brand. So whether that be a bank, how can a bank benefit from this event that I'm having? How can the Jamaica Tourist Board does this event bring in tourists? So why, if not, or does it appeal to tourism? Does it take Jamaica's brand wider? Does are people interested in eating fried chicken at this particular event? If not, then don't go to KFC. You can see a thing where we can, you know, KFC would be the perfect meal, and the tying of the brand to your brand and how we can make that happen in social media, and the kind of, you know, independent promotions that we can do. So I remember when we were doing Restaurant Week, Toyota at the time, shouldn't have said the brand, but love this concept that we had where we were going to tie their influencer, Carell, didn't actually happen, to having her go across the country to all the different restaurants. At the time we were going to Negril, and it was going to be Terry, who loves to the values. Terry loves to be on the road. Toyota actually had the RAV4, all utility or
It
several
was
utility
time
vehicles.
and
It
time.
worked,
Yeah.
right? And then we were going to have Terry, I'm in the grill. And so is restaurant week. And she's going to go to all the restaurants. Everything was tied together at that point. The brands could converge closely and or seamlessly, I should say. And that was wonderful. The only reason it didn't happen is because we didn't have enough time, right? But that's how we took an influencer who authentically loved the road. I heard another influencer speak the other day, and he said he's tired of people asking him to eat fish, fish endorsements. He said, I don't eat fish. I actually hate fish. Don't ask me to come and eat fish at your restaurant. Get to know your influencer, what they love, what they like. Do they like the road? Do they like private hotels? Do they, are they, big on Black movement and politics and
I give
things
you,
like that.
Daniel, that is on the one hand, um, ensuring that we are tying value to the values of our customers, but also tying the value of our business to either for a sponsorship, for an
Yes.
endorsement, that it is about recognizing how we can bring value to that sponsor. How do we
Correct.
bring value to that endorser? So that whole concept of value, we've gone full circle to that
Full
concept
circle.
of value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I use it under that umbrella of emotional connection. It is absolutely important. Emotional connection comes through knowing what is valuable and what the values are. Get those together, you're going for
Say that again. Say that again. You need to get that at Jaipur too.
When you have create emotional connection, it is when you talk about what is valuable and what the values are, and you put those together and it becomes seamless. I want to just give it up for my multivitamins that I've been taking, that I actually remember that.
Wow, Danielle Terrelonge, Managing Director, DRT Communications, another expert, another brand expert. Thank you so much, Danielle. I see Sandra Palmer says synergy is important, which ties in exactly with what you're just saying. Thank you for taking the time to spend this evening with us on CovidCastJA and to share with our MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises. I see Rosalie Brown. Hi, Rosalie Brown. Emotional connection, knowing what is valuable and what the values are.
Absolutely.
Danielle, and please, I'm going to ask our producers to put Danielle's information in the chat. But Danielle, so people know asking where we can find Danielle. Where do
you can find me at several places. Instagram, me personally, Danielle DRT. DRT Communications is at DRT Communications. And for those small business owners who would like to be a part of training and learn how to create their marketing strategies, at Scale Up and Go. And if you're quite interested in having a life coach and transforming your life, I'm at live_well by Danielle.
Oh, thank you very much, Danielle Terrelonge. And at this time, we're going to be joined by Jomarie Malcolm Gordon. You were saying to yourself, no, man, them couldn't be bringing anymore because my belly all, I can't believe I get so much information, and there's more information to come. And if you are just joining us, we are talking about protecting your personal brand. We've heard from Naomi, Garrick, the PR chick, founder of Garrett Communications. We've heard from Danielle Terrelonge, Managing Director, DRT Communications. And please, if you've missed this, the first part of this episode, and you say to yourself, oh my goodness, how could I have missed it? Smallbusinessportal.com. Go to our YouTube page, subscribe, follow us on Facebook. And I see Stephanie Graham says, fantastic info, Danielle. Soho Jamaica says, thanks, Danielle. Connections, relationships, and value perfection. We had Michelle from Soho last week. Please, you need to go and watch that episode. Yamfoot says, another very informative episode. And Yamfoot, we have more to come because we're now going to be joined by Jomarie Malcolm Gordon, brand expert and attorney at law. She is from Malcolm Mavericks Creative Consultancy. She's your favorite brand expert, Jomarie, a Maverick professional who left law for branding and hasn't regretted it yet. For over 10 years, she has gone from making it pop as a graphic designer to making it make sense as a brand strategist. Coming in with a TV anchor voice, and you'll hear her shortly, that makes up for her staggering 5 feet. She's founder of Mavericks Creative Consultancy. And in the land of impressions and influence, she focuses on human-to-human business engagement by building authentic connections through purpose-driven strategy without the hard sell. Jomarie, glad to have you. And you're certainly popping on CovidCastJA tonight. Jomarie, Malcolm Mavericks, tell us a little bit about your brand. I see Rushcam says, watch the hairstyle.
Well, first of all, Rochelle, thank you so much for having me here. CovidCast, good evening, my fellow panelists. So I've just been enjoying and nodding my head along, so I'm really happy to be here. In terms of telling you more about Malcolm Mavericks, so really, as you would have mentioned, when I left law, I really wanted to carry out my vocation in helping people. And when I was a graphic designer, I found that whereas I could develop brand assets and help people to do their logos and all the other visual components, when I stopped to ask them, so what is this in accordance with, or what is this, how does this connect to your business strategy? Most people didn't realize there was even a connection to begin with. And so I saw the value in really stepping back from that asset development to really helping people develop their strategy. And so what Malcolm Mavericks helps to do is really to hone the power of your story, because ultimately it's your story that's influencing your ideal audience and really helping your positioning and helping you to build those authentic connections, because we know about B2B and B2C, but what's even more important in the world of branding is H to H, which is that human-to-human interaction wherein you can position yourself as an expert, position yourself as someone who knows what they're talking about, but more importantly, you appreciate through empathy that you are adding value to someone's life. And so it's that kind of mindful and thoughtful reflection that we help businesses, professionals, and entrepreneurs to do.
Wow. You know, as you're speaking, Jomarie, I know too that even from our 2 previous guests, this whole concept of authenticity, connection, emotion. And I know some of our business people are saying, I don't have no time for that, you know. I just really am truly trying to make these dresses, or I'm trying to churn out this soap. I'm trying to get those doors back open in COVID. How do we utilize this information, this value in this emotional human-to-human connection to really keep our doors open and expand and grow our business?
Well, the thing about authenticity, Rochelle, and if I could put you on the spot, for example, authenticity is something that you consistently see. And so I've had the pleasure, for example, of seeing you in 3 dispensations. So I've seen you on CovidCast, I've seen you on Ready to Emerge, and I've seen you on Elevate. And so what you've consistently done is that you've shown me that your authenticity lies in the way that you carry yourself, in the way that you communicate, in the way that you articulate, in that very guttural laugh that you have when you are thoroughly comfortable with everyone, you know? And I use that as an example because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because that's the impression you've given me. So that's the beauty about branding. That's the beauty about branding, you know, that's the impression you've given me. And the reason why it registers as authentic to me is that I've seen it consistently. And so what's so important is that you are showing up in a consistent manner, because when you do that, you're able to ground people's perceptions, because branding is really about belief systems. You're building a belief system that can build a community. You want people to believe in what you have to offer. You want people to accept what you have to offer. And so in order for you to do that, you need to position what you're saying, how you're communicating, and the way in which you're interacting with your ideal audience in such a way that it creates that authenticity. Now, I want to dispel the notion that authenticity is something that you have to go and figure out or find out or go beyond yourself to ascertain. That authenticity is actually just really self-reflection. You stop and you say, what do I want to be known for? Again, Rochelle, putting you on the spot just a little bit. You have positioned yourself by virtue of your Instagram bio that you're a motivational speaker, you're an attorney at law, you're a transformational coach, you're an international speaker, and you're a human developer. You've told me all these things because if I never got the chance to see you at those 3 different events, that is what you want me to know. So what I would like SMEs to know is that it's important to start out by saying, what do I want to be known as? And who do I need to become, or what do I need to become in order to be known as that? Because oftentimes as business people, we think we're just in the business of selling products and services. You're actually in the business of solving problems, and you're in the business of, as Danielle would have mentioned, you're creating value. And so you have to answer the question, why should I care? And I think that once you're able to answer, why should I care? You show up in a manner that registers as very consistent, then that authenticity bit of it becomes a little easier, because people will repeatedly expect a certain level of service or a certain level of experience with you. And then that now helps the branding, because ultimately you're always branding. So even though we talk about the intentional act of branding, Rochelle, I just want everyone to appreciate that you're always creating an impression. What you're doing now is that through self-reflection or through an analysis of who you are and what you want to become, you are now determining, okay, what are the steps I need in order to achieve those business objectives or that goal that I have? And by doing that, the authenticity that you so desperately want to communicate or you so desperately want to illustrate is really at the intersection of that self-awareness and creating value. Because when you do that repeatedly, people will keep thinking, whenever I want a speaker who is always impeccably dressed or who is always, who knows how to deal with any type of crowd, there's a certain name that will come up. Or whenever I want a business that is able to execute an online event, because of course we're in the pandemic and we are relying more than ever on that virtual experience, there's a company that comes to mind. And so it's important to really start out with what you want to be known for, who do you need to become in order to be known for that, and really how can you do it differently.
Wow, Jomarie. And I see the comments are flowing in. Rush Cam, how you do? He says, we're always branding, so we might as well be intentional. He says, I feel you, Joe. Warren Roy Gordon says, authenticity equals self-reflection. Abigail Edwards says, authenticity on the basis of being consistent. Master Form says, age to age, the human to human, the emotional connection. And as we're talking about this emotional connection, and we are obliged to do that reflection on the who we are in the value that we are putting forward. I know too, you also have a background in creating that logo, those graphics that go along with that persona. And sometimes we don't have somebody to have that end-to-end conversation with.
Right.
And create now the image that reflects what we've put forward. Now, when you meet with a client and they come and say, listen, Jomarie, hear what now? I'm selling plants and the plants, them going on good, but I know that I need to take it to the next level. Right. And I know people are into their home decor now. They're spending more time at home. They want to be nurturing something. What is the process that you take a client through to determine that brand authenticity, the value being created, and what that imagery that will represent a logo and the look and feel of their brand? What's that process like?
Right. So it's really to get from that macro view, because as the person who is coming to help someone articulate their brand, you will acknowledge that they won't know everything. They won't know the answers to everything. And that's really your job. So when a client comes and if they're selling plants, and let's say that the person is Ashley, because I just as an example. So Ashley wants to sell plants. Before we get into the assets and the logo and the website and everything, I want to understand a bit more about Ashley's desire to sell plants. I want to get to know, why did you get into plant selling in the first place? Because oftentimes we neglect the importance of our origin story in building that H2H connection. So let's say that you're somebody, right? So I would love to know, why did you start selling plants? Why not start selling cakes? Maybe it is that your grandmother used to grow these absolutely beautiful plants, and that is why and she passed, and as a tribute to her, you've started to sell plants. Because that's a story that when you tell that, it's not just about come and buy these plants for 15,000 Jamaican dollars. It's you're buying into a story that is near and dear to me. And there's so many people who have that connection over that motherly or sisterly engagement with a relative that, you know, they would have done gardening with, and they would have been able to have that connection. So we start with your origin story. Then after that, I want to understand, okay, you sell plants, what kind of plants? Because you're not in branding to sound the same. You're in branding to sound different. You're in branding to sound as authentic as you can, but as different as you can. So, okay, what type of plants do you sell? Let's say you sell orchids. Now, if you know anything about orchids, Rochelle, you know that orchids they're different sprays, they're different, you know, they're just different options of orchids. Okay, so do you have a different in terms of the color orchids that you offer? Like, what's different about your orchids? Because what I'm essentially doing without saying it is I'm starting to understand what niche you're in. Because you started out with the macro view of you're selling plants. And just by asking you a bit more questions, we've gotten to you sell orchids. And by asking you a bit more questions, you sell purple orchids or you sell white orchids. And so once we're going through that narrowing down process, it then becomes a little easier to say, okay, Ashley is the person who you go to for highly unique orchids. You see the difference between I sell plants. Because what you're doing now is, I know not to come to you for sunflowers. I know not to come to you for tulips, because what you are doing is that you're telling me that you sell white or purple or a very unique orchid. So we go through that process of understanding what makes you different and why it is that you're doing this in the first place. When you're going into graphic articulation, there are certain things that you want to play on. Color theory is something that I wholeheartedly believe in, and I'm going to try very hard to not nerd out about that because I strongly believe in it. Color theory signals certain things to the person's mind. It's the reason why when you see the colors red in all of your fast food chains, it's because red makes you feel hungry. Red also creates a sense of urgency, and that's why it's fast food. So you don't feel compelled to stay in a red place too long. It's the reason why if you see purple in snacks, you think of barbecue, or if you see blue in snacks, you also think of like Chips Ahoy and Oreos. So all of these things communicate something. So when Ashley has moved through that process of, well, this is why I wanted to do this, the reason behind the brand, this is the distinction that I'm trying to create. And now it's time to have a conversation about, well, how are we going to communicate this? Now, I skipped a few steps, so let me backtrack. I don't want people to think that we just jump from there to there. There are certain things you now need to address. So you've created this niche for yourself. You're positioning yourself as the authority, or you're positioning yourself as the go-to person for unique orchids. The next thing you need to understand is who are the people you're talking to, because you're not trying to talk to everyone. And that is something that branding is supposed to help you with. You're supposed to position yourselves for the ideal opportunities and the ideal audience, because when you do that, you're speaking the language of somebody who gets you. It's the difference between you speaking Spanish to somebody who is speaking Spanish versus you speaking Spanish to somebody who speaks English. Because you're not speaking the same language, there's a barrier. And so it's easy for you to find somebody that speaks the same language. So again, just to summarize where we are so far, we've gone through the niching process, we've gone through that distinction. There are so many steps before graphic articulation, and that's what I'm trying to communicate, Rochelle, by really just saying, even though people come ready for a logo and their brand on the Oxford shirt, there's an entire process. But when we get to the fun stuff, because I love the fun stuff. When we get to the fun stuff, the color theory plays a role. But I also want to understand, okay, fonts also communicate. So if it is that you're in an elegant and sophisticated type of orchid, you might decide, you know what, I want to use cursive fonts, or I want to use script versus cursive. Like I want to use a different type of font outlay. But before I go down that very brand design nerd, road, what's important for everyone on CovidCast to understand is, it is very helpful to start with your business objectives. In the case of Ashley, who is selling plants, who now knows that she's in fact selling orchids that are specialized, is that you actually need to appreciate what you do differently. When you go to a graphic designer or somebody who you want to articulate your messaging and communication, they're able to feed from that in a much better way. So it's similarly to when Danielle mentioned her friend who they kept getting forks for the logos, because the truth is we tend to use knife and forks to communicate food. But what if we actually simply just used the curve of a plate, a small outline of a fork and a small outline of a knife? It's abstract, yes, but it's not dead on fork, knife, and plate. So that process really requires you to appreciate what are the business objectives, how do you do things differently. And when you get to the graphic articulation, that's when you start to leverage things like color theory and really how you can design something that looks and communicates that. But more than anything else, you need to know what you're communicating. So before you put out brand assets, you need to know what exactly are you communicating in the first place. Because if you do the logo first, if I was to create, for example, if I was to create a logo for, and again, Rochelle, you're just going to be my analogy for the night. If I was to create a logo for Rochelle Cameron, knowing that your Instagram handle is Adrenaline Roach, that informs me, because I figure that there was an intentional reason for that. There was a reason you wanted to use that specific name to communicate something. So your logo should have something that speaks to energy, because you're trying to communicate to your audience that I am a high energy person. When you call me to do anything in any space, it's going to be high energy. And so that kind of articulation, if I created a logo that communicated none of that, it would have been a disservice to you, because it's not just about looking pretty, it's about positioning. It's about how do you, in the absence of any explanation and any additional information, you're still able to communicate who you are.
Wow. And you've really taken us along such a reflective journey, because as we get our brands out, as we start our businesses, sometimes we are just so gung-ho to get a logo on a shirt that we actually don't even think about, as Warren Ward Gordon says, or why, what values are we communicating? Who are we communicating to? What are our business objectives? And that we don't need to be serving everyone, but we need to be able to identify who we are serving, what we're serving them, and whether or not they can look at whatever assets are out there for our business, and they can even pull our why from just that imagery.
Right. Because remember, as Naomi said, it's really what happens when you're not in the room. And so you always have to assume that if you're never given the opportunity to explain your brand speaks for itself. And so it's really to encourage the persons on CovidCast to say, when you're doing that branding process, first of all, it's really meant to be fun. Like, I think sometimes people think branding is like very straight-laced. I'm like, no, it's really support and hard, But Rochelle, as just to kind of tie things together, if you don't mind, it's really a matter of how are you going to just stop before you get into all the outward-facing things, because the outward-facing things are much more obvious. So like the use of your colors and the use of logos. And that's why I can't fault anyone for starting there, because to be fair, that's the part most people know about. But what I am encouraging you to do, and even before you consult anyone, this might just be your personal work, to really introspect and say, what do I want my business to be known for? What are my values? What are the belief systems I want people to cultivate whenever they do business with me? Because when you start there, you position yourself in such a way that you're creating that distinction, but you're also humanizing. Because again, you don't do business with you do business with other people. People want to know that when they interact with you, they're getting the same person, they get energized, they get excited. But at the end of the day, this is somebody who has the capacity for empathy and has the capacity to understand that you're solving my problems and you're adding value. So it's really, how do you do all of that in a way that makes sense to you? And if you're thinking, okay, Joe, how can I start that process for myself? It really begins with, what do you want to be known for? If you start there and you're like, okay, what do I want to be known for? If I want to be a public speaker, who do I need to become a public speaker? And you might find that the distance between who you are now and who you want to become might not be that far. And most importantly, when you're in a room of people, the only person you can't see is you. And so this is where, get people to tell you things like, okay, so in your case, Rochelle, I know you share space and hold space with Kathy and Naomi. So it might be that if you were ever to really just assess, guys, like, give me 5 words that you think describe me and describe me as a person, you might be surprised by what they tell you. Because you have your own blind spots, and you might have limiting beliefs about yourself that says, well, I can't do that. But if Naomi and Kathy see it in you, then it's like, okay, well, they know me and they know me in a certain dispensation and capacity, so I can trust what they're saying. So I would encourage people to do that as well. That little audit that says, let me ask 5 people What's some, like if you had 5 words to describe me, what would those words be? And you would find that they're patterns. So you don't have to do all of the heavy lifting yourself. They're patterns. People might think that you're a leader and you might be like, oh, I can't lead anything. No, but how is it that you're always getting the leadership roles in your business, in corporate environment? Like you're always a person people select, you know? So it's really to narrow those blind spots, do that reflection, and really find that intersection between this feels authentic and good for me, but I also appreciate that if I want to get to that next level, I might have to learn a few things and become somebody. And you're not becoming somebody different, Rochelle. That's the important thing. You're just becoming an elevated, right, an enhanced version of yourself. Yes.
As they say, the best version of yourself.
Yes, absolute best.
But Jomarie, you have taken us to school. I see Rosalie Brown saying, wow, when you are in a room of persons, the only person you cannot see is you. Do your personal audit. Powerful. Tony and Pastor says, so true. Your origin story should inform and guide the logo development process. And Marcia forms acknowledge a gentleman, Warren Roy Gordon. Hi, Warren.
Yes, that's my husband. Hi, Warren.
And Stephanie says, starting with your why is so important. Sandra Palmer says, be unique in positioning your brand, be strategic. Jomarie Malcolm Gordon, you have taken us to school. Tonight has truly been a master class in protecting your personal brand, building your personal brand, starting with your why, your origin story. We have had 3 amazing guests tonight. We wrapped up with Jomarie Gordon, who is a brand expert. She's also an attorney at law, by the way. Malcolm Mavericks Creative Consultancy. And Jomarie, you can't leave without just telling us, where do we find information? Where we find you online and so on?
Okay, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Jomarie Malcolm Gordon. You can find me on Instagram at the Jomarie Malcolm Gordon. You can find me at Twitter on Jomarie Malcolm. And you can also, Googling is helpful too. But definitely you can find me on those 3 platforms. And really, if anyone has any additional questions or any follow-up thoughts that they might have and they didn't necessarily feel that this was the right forum to ask those questions, please feel free to reach out.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm seeing the comments coming in. Marcia Bob says, awesome ladies, proud of each of you. Stephanie says, great discussion, ladies. So much useful info. Janelle Malcolm says, taking time to think about what you want people to say about you before getting into the merch, that is the logo, etc. Definitely taking notes. Sandra Palmer says, tonight's session rich, a whole heap of food for thought. She looked like she wants a part 2. She says, leaves me wanting more. Thank you, Rosalie Brown, who says, great session. So, CovidCast viewers, thank you for joining us for another episode of CovidCastJA. Tonight we had Naomi Garrick, personal branding coach and founder, Garrett Communications. Danielle Terrelonge, managing director, DRT Communications. Jomarie Malcolm Gordon, brand expert and attorney at law, Malcolm Mavericks Creative Consultancy. Please share this episode. We have, you can review it on our YouTube page, on Facebook, smallbusinessportal.com. Please do not let another week pass and you don't sign up for our weekly memo. Email us at sme@psoj.org or visit smallbusinessportal.com and click on CovidCast. By the way, we have a 2-day online conference coming up, and you have to be there. Building wealth, because we not staying broke no more. We are building wealth in our businesses, in our families. We're building generational wealth. We're building business wealth. On Friday, October 22nd, 2021, we will be talking about building business wealth, understanding your money, understanding how to grow your business wealth. On Sunday, October 24th, and for the Jamaicans, I know you are in lockdown, so you have something to do. On Sunday, October 24th, we're talking about building generational wealth, understanding how to make, keep, and grow money for families, individuals, and those interested in growing wealth. Please follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. Look out for registration, because registration is free. This is a free 2-day virtual conference that looks not only at your business, but looks at how you grow wealth, for generations to come in your families. So please look out, sign up. I'm seeing Kerry Wally says, thanks all, very insightful. Christina says, it's so awesome to see these young people sharing light on both the young and age. Great timing, teachers. Tonight was a master class. Audrey Allen says, very informative. And Janelle Malcolm says, I get that. So when seeking sponsorship, we really need to look at the potential of the sponsors, And you know, if you're just joining, you're saying, what are they talking about? What are all of these things they're talking about? Again, smallbusinessportal.com. Visit us, download our memo, download this episode, share this episode with a friend. Go to our YouTube page and subscribe right now. Follow us on Facebook. Next week, we're back again at 7:30 p.m. for another episode of CovidCastJA.
So you have a great idea to start a business, but you don't know where to start. We completely understand. You have a lot of questions and almost no answers. Smallbusinessportal.com is here to help. At smallbusinessportal.com, you gain access to information on loans, grants, and investment opportunities from verified financial institutions. Guess what you also get? Useful business tips, access to training. All these services combine to make your business idea into a reality. Start your journey today at smallbusinessportal.com.
Do you want to level up your business?
Level up.
Join us on CovidCastJA every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube at PSOJ Financial Access Jamaica. And don't forget to follow us on all socials to interact with our weekly polls and Q&As.